Hey guys, tonight we're diving headfirst into a nightmare you never knew you had. The utterly miserable, relentlessly terrifying existence of the very first human to walk the earth. Imagine waking up, right now, but not in your comfy bed. Instead, you're sprawled on damp earth, the chill seeping into your bones, and the air thick with unfamiliar scents. There's no ceiling, no walls, just an endless expanse of trees towering over you, their leaves whispering secrets you don't understand. The ground beneath your hand isn't carpet. It's rough, uneven soil, maybe a few sharp pebbles digging into your palm. You glance around, and every shadow seems to writhe. Every rustle in the undergrowth sounds like a predator closing in. Your stomach growls, a deep, hollow ache, but you have no idea where your next meal will come from, or even what a meal truly is. You're alone, completely, utterly alone, with not a single instruction manual, no helpful YouTube tutorials, and certainly no corner store for a midnight snack run. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes, blinking against the unfamiliar light filtering through a canopy of leaves. Everything is new. And by new, I mean everything. The concept of a tree? Nope. That's just a giant, scratchy, woody thing that goes up. The feeling of cool, damp mud squishing between your toes? A sensation without a name. A bizarre squelch that makes you instinctively pull your foot back. You stand, wobbly, like a newborn giraffe trying to find its footing after a particularly long nap. Your hands reach out, touching the rough bark of a tree, then tracing the delicate vein of a leaf. It's all just information. Raw, unfiltered, and overwhelming. You're the ultimate pioneer, not just of a new land, but of basic existence itself. Every sound is a mystery. The chirping of an insect, the distant howl of something large and toothy, the gentle gurgle of a nearby stream. Are these good sounds? Bad sounds? You have no frame of reference. This is like being dropped into an alien world where nothing makes sense except you are the alien, and this is your home now. Historians still argue whether early humans had a primal fear of the unknown hardwired into their brains, but you certainly feel an intense, churning anxiety. Every shadow seems to hold a monster, every rustle a threat. There's no Google to quickly search, are these red berries safe to eat? You learn by doing, and by doing, I mean you learn by suffering. You touch something spiky and recoil, a sharp pain searing your finger. You pick up a smooth, heavy rock, feeling its weight, its potential. But potential for what? You don't know. You're not just discovering the world. You're discovering the very act of discovery. You're learning what sharp means, what heavy means, what cold means, not from a dictionary, but through direct, often painful, experience. It's like living in an endless game of charades where you're the only one who doesn't know any of the words, and the stakes are life or death. One mainstream historical fact we know is that early humans, often classified as Homo habilis or Homo erectus depending on the exact timeline, began to walk upright consistently, a key evolutionary adaptation. For you, the first human, this newfound bipedalism is both a blessing and a curse. You can see further over the tall grasses, spotting potential threats or food sources. But standing tall also makes you a more visible target. It's a trade-off your body instinctively made long before your conscious mind could process it. And you're still figuring out how to balance on 2 feet without tumbling over, especially when the ground is uneven or slippery with morning dew. Imagine trying to run a marathon right now without ever having learned to walk properly. That's your Tuesday. A quirky tidbit from anthropology. Some theories suggest early humans may have engaged in mobbing behavior against large predators, essentially overwhelming them with numbers and loud noises to drive them away from kills. But you, as the first human, don't have a mob. You have yourself, and maybe a stick you picked up that looks vaguely threatening, if you squint and have a very vivid imagination. You are the ultimate solo act in a world built for ensembles. The sun begins to arc across the sky, casting long shadows, and a new anxiety starts to prickle at the edges of your awareness. What happens when it gets dark? The day, for all its terrifying newness, at least offers the comfort of light. Night, however, is a canvas for your burgeoning imagination to paint horrors upon, each one more vivid than the last. You shiver, not just from the cooling air, but from the dawning realization that your existence is a constant, exhausting struggle against a world that doesn't care if you live or die. As the first rays of dawn pierce through the dense canopy, painting the world in hues of orange and gold. Your stomach clenches with a new, insistent demand. Hunger. Not the kind where you skip lunch and feel a bit peckish. This is a gnawing, all-consuming emptiness that echoes deep within your very bones. You have no concept of breakfast, lunch, or dinner. There's no fridge to raid, no drive-through lane, not even a vending machine dispensing questionable snacks. Your every waking moment is now dictated by this primal urge. You stumble forward, your senses on high alert, scanning the bewildering array of plant life around you. What's edible? What's poisonous? You have no inherited knowledge, no tribal elders to whisper warnings about the pretty red berries that cause excruciating cramps, or the strange mushrooms that induce vivid hallucinations before shutting down your organs. Every potential food source is a terrifying gamble. You eye a cluster of bright green leaves, their edges slightly serrated. Do they offer sustenance? Or will they make your throat burn and your gut twist? Your only guide is trial and error, a brutal teacher that punishes mistakes with agonizing sickness or, more often than not, a swift, unceremonious death. Imagine playing Russian roulette, but instead of a single bullet, every chamber holds a different kind of toxin, and you have to pull the trigger multiple times a day just to survive. You might pick up a fallen fruit, its skin bruised, and bring it cautiously to your nose. It smells sweet, a tempting aroma that overrides your natural caution. You take a small bite. The texture is soft, the taste surprisingly pleasant. Relief washes over you, a momentary reprieve from the relentless hunger. But then, as the hours pass, a dull ache begins in your stomach, steadily growing into a searing pain. Your body rebels, expelling whatever nourishment you thought you'd gained. You learn, through miserable experience, that even something seemingly innocuous can betray you. This cycle repeats, endlessly. You discover through sheer desperation that some roots, when dug up with raw, bleeding fingers, offer a starchy, if bland, sustenance. You learn to recognize the fleeting scent of a wild animal, not as a friend, but as a potential, high-risk meal. One mainstream historical fact is that early human diets were incredibly varied and opportunistic, adapting to whatever was available in their local environment. They ate roots, tubers, leaves, fruits, insects, small animals, and scavenged larger carcasses. For you, the first human, this isn't a varied diet in the culinary sense. It's a frantic scavenger hunt where the prize is not starving to death. You learn to distinguish between the soft, yielding flesh of a ripe fruit and the hard, unyielding shell of a poisonous nut, often only after cracking a tooth or enduring hours of gut-wrenching discomfort. It's an ongoing, high-stakes science experiment, with you as the unwilling subject. A quirky tidbit. Some anthropologists suggest that early humans might have followed birds or other animals to find water sources or ripe fruit trees. But for you, the first human, there's no pre-existing knowledge of animal behavior. You're watching a squirrel crack open a nut, not knowing if that nut is safe for you. You're observing a herd of grazers, wondering what they're eating and if it's palatable. You're a detective with no prior cases to refer to, no established patterns, just raw observation and a terrifying sense of urgency. Historians still argue whether the transition to a more meat-heavy diet was driven by necessity or by the cognitive advancements that allowed for more effective hunting. For you, it's about whatever you can overpower, scavenge, or simply catch. Your hunting skills, initially, are non-existent. You try to snatch a small bird from a bush, only for it to dart away with frustrating ease. You attempt to corner a scurrying lizard, but it vanishes into the undergrowth like a phantom. You are inefficient, clumsy, and often laughably inept compared to the seasoned predators around you. There's no elegant spear throwing, no clever traps. Just your hands, your nascent strength, and a growing sense of desperation. When you do manage to corner something small, a beetle, a slow-moving grub, the act of consuming it is purely utilitarian, driven by the burning need to survive. There's no joy in eating, just the temporary cessation of a deeply unpleasant sensation. Every meal is a victory against an invisible, relentless enemy, starvation. And with every victory, you gain a tiny, hard-won piece of knowledge, a scrap of understanding about this brutal, beautiful, and utterly indifferent world. The gnawing hunger might subside for a short while after a lucky find, But another, equally relentless craving quickly takes its place. Thirst. Imagine your throat feeling like sandpaper, your tongue thick and heavy in your mouth, and your head beginning to throb with a dull ache. There's no tap to turn on, no bottle of purified water chilling in a cooler. Every shimmering pool you stumble upon, every trickling stream, presents a new set of dangers. Is the water clean? Or does it carry invisible passengers that will twist your gut into knots and leave you writhing in agony? You approach a small, stagnant puddle, its surface murky and swarming with tiny, unidentifiable creatures. Your instinct screams caution, but your body screams for relief. You lower your head, cupping your hands to scoop up a meager mouthful. The taste is metallic, earthy, and strangely warm. You swallow, the relief immediate, even as a creeping doubt begins to form in your mind. Later, the inevitable happens. Your stomach cramps violently, and you spend hours doubled over, expelling everything you've consumed, leaving you even more dehydrated than before. You learn, the hard way, that appearances can be deceiving, and that thirst, while agonizing, is often less dangerous than the unseen perils lurking within seemingly innocent water sources. One mainstream historical fact is that access to clean water was a constant struggle for early human populations, dictating migration patterns and settlement locations. For you, the first human, every body of water is a mystery box. You don't know about giardia, cholera, or dysentery. You just know that sometimes drinking water makes you very, very sick. You start to associate certain water sources with illness, and others, miraculously, with a clean, refreshing taste that doesn't lead to hours of misery. Perhaps you notice that water flowing quickly over rocks seems to cause less trouble than the still, murky kind. These are your first, rudimentary lessons in epidemiology, learned through personal suffering. A quirky tidbit. Some researchers propose that early humans might have observed animal behavior, specifically what animals drank from safely, to identify potable water sources. But remember, you're the first human. There's no one to teach you this trick. You might see a deer gracefully lowering its head to a clear stream and instinctively, slowly, cautiously, follow suit. You're mimicking, not understanding, hoping its instincts align with your own survival. Historians still argue whether the development of crude tools for digging wells or filtering water, perhaps through layers of sand and charcoal, came relatively early or much later in human technological development. For you, digging for water is just more brute force labor, clawing at the earth with raw fingers, praying for a damp patch. The sun beats down, relentlessly, drying out your skin, baking the ground. You sweat, your body desperately trying to cool itself, and with every bead of perspiration, another precious drop of fluid is lost. The desperate search for water becomes an all-consuming quest, overshadowing even the hunger. You might spend an entire day trudging through unfamiliar terrain, driven by the distant sound of trickling water, only to find a muddy puddle that's already been fouled by animals. The disappointment is crushing, a visceral blow to your dwindling reserves of hope. You quickly discover that morning dew can offer a small, precious amount of hydration, carefully wiping leaves with your hand and licking the moisture off. It's not enough to sustain you, but it's a momentary relief, a tiny victory against the overwhelming odds. You learn to recognize the types of plants that tend to hold moisture, perhaps even figuring out how to squeeze a bit of liquid from a fleshy stem. It's a slow, agonizing process of accumulation, each piece of knowledge etched into your being through discomfort and near failure. The sweet, clean taste of truly fresh water, when you find it, is an unparalleled luxury, a moment of pure, unadulterated bliss in an otherwise brutal existence. But these moments are rare, fleeting oases in a desert of perpetual thirst. Your body aches, your head spins, and the search continues, day after relentless day. With hunger and thirst momentarily appeased, your attention shifts to the relentless assault of the natural world itself. You have no home, no cozy cave with a roaring fire, no cleverly constructed lean-to. You are utterly, entirely exposed. When the sun beats down, it scorches your skin, leaving it red and peeling. There's no sunscreen, no wide-brimmed hat, just the raw, unprotected expanse of your body against the sun's merciless gaze. You learn to seek the dappled shade beneath trees, But even there, the air hangs heavy and humid, often swarming with buzzing insects intent on tasting your blood. Every bite is an itchy annoyance, a potential source of infection, and a constant reminder of your vulnerability. When the rains come, they don't just drizzle, they lash down in torrential sheets, turning the ground to slippery mud and chilling you to the bone. You huddle beneath the meager shelter of an overhang, shivering uncontrollably, your teeth chattering. Your thin covering of body hair offers little protection, and your skin, constantly damp, feels clammy and miserable. Hypothermia is a silent, creeping killer, slowly draining your warmth and your will to survive. You don't understand weather patterns or cold fronts. You just know that sometimes the sky opens up and unleashes misery, and you are entirely at its mercy. One mainstream historical fact is that early human shelter was often opportunistic, utilizing natural formations like caves and rock overhangs before the development of more complex structures. For you, the first human, finding such a natural sanctuary is a stroke of incredible luck, a momentary reprieve. You might stumble upon a shallow cave, its entrance barely wide enough for your body, and crawl inside, feeling a fleeting sense of security. But even then, the cave floor is cold, hard, and often damp. There's no soft bedding, no comforting blankets. You curl into a tight ball, trying to conserve what little body heat you have, acutely aware of every rustle and scrape from outside. A quirky tidbit from archaeological findings suggests that early humans might have lined their sleeping areas with leaves, grasses, or even animal hides for insulation and comfort. But you, the first human, don't have this inherited wisdom. You lie directly on the cold earth, feeling every sharp stone and protruding root digging into your back. Perhaps, purely by accident, you might gather a handful of dry leaves to lie on, discovering the minuscule difference it makes. It's not about building a home. It's about finding the least uncomfortable way to simply exist in this unforgiving environment. Historians still argue whether the invention of basic clothing, beyond simple animal skins, arose primarily for warmth or for protection against thorns, insects, and sun. For you, warmth is the immediate, desperate need when the chill sets in. The wind howls, tearing through the trees, carrying with it unseen dust and debris. It whips your hair into a tangled mess and makes your eyes water. There's no escape from its biting embrace, no wall to block its relentless force. You learn to instinctively turn your back to it, hunching your shoulders, trying to make yourself smaller, less vulnerable. Every gust feels like a personal affront, a reminder of your fragility. Sleep, when it comes, is a fitful, shallow affair. Every unfamiliar sound jolts you awake, your heart pounding in your chest. Was that a predator outside your makeshift shelter? Or just a branch snapping in the wind? You can't distinguish between the truly dangerous and the merely annoying. You wake up stiff, sore, and exhausted, having spent the night in a state of hypervigilance. The concept of a deep, restful sleep is a luxury unimaginable in your current reality. You live on the edge, perpetually aware of your surroundings, constantly preparing for the next assault from the elements. There's no comfort, no respite, just the endless grind of simply enduring. You've survived the sun, the rain, and the biting cold, but now a far more immediate and terrifying threat emerges from the shadows: predators. You are not at the top of the food chain. You are, in fact, a rather soft, slow, and surprisingly tasty snack for a terrifying array of creatures. Imagine the sudden, spine-chilling roar of a saber-toothed cat, its eyes glowing in the deepening twilight, just meters from where you huddle. Your instincts, though raw and unrefined, scream one word: run. But where do you run? Every direction holds unknown dangers. Your senses are heightened to an unbearable degree. Every snap of a twig, every rustle in the undergrowth, sends a jolt of pure terror through your body. You learn to recognize the chilling silence that falls just before a large predator strikes, a silence broken only by the frantic pounding of your own heart. You are constantly scanning your surroundings, your eyes darting, your ears straining, trying to pick out any hint of movement, any sign of danger. It's like living in a horror movie, but you can't close your eyes, and there's no director to yell cut. One mainstream historical fact is that early humans coexisted with, and were often preyed upon by, a variety of megafauna, including large carnivores like lions, dire wolves, and various prehistoric big cats. For you, these aren't just names in a textbook. They are the monstrous realities that stalk your every step. You learn, very quickly, to differentiate between the harmless chirping of crickets and the low, guttural growl that promises swift, violent death. You see the fresh paw prints in the mud, impossibly large, and a cold dread settles in your gut. You understand, on a visceral level, that you are not the hunter, you are the hunted. A quirky tidbit from paleoanthropology suggests that early humans might have developed rudimentary forms of camouflage or stealth tactics, not to hunt, but to avoid being hunted. For you, this means pressing yourself flat against the earth, holding your breath, and trying to become one with the shadows as a towering predator lumbers past, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. You learn to interpret the alarm calls of birds, understanding that their sudden squawks mean danger is near, even if you can't yet see it. Historians still argue whether early hominids developed a fear of heights more as an innate survival mechanism against falls, or as a learned response to escape ground predators by climbing trees. For you, trees become a precarious, temporary refuge, offering a fleeting sense of safety. Even as you cling to branches, your muscles aching, knowing you can't stay there forever. The constant threat impacts your very physiology. Your adrenaline is perpetually high, your muscles tense, ready for flight. This chronic stress takes its toll, eating away at your energy reserves, leaving you exhausted even when you haven't physically exerted yourself. You're hypervigilant even in your fitful sleep, dreaming of chasing jaws and slashing claws. The world is a vast, dangerous wilderness, and you are always just one wrong step away from becoming another creature's meal. When you do encounter a predator, it's not a glorious battle. It's a desperate, frantic scramble for survival. You throw rocks, you scream, you flail wildly. Anything to make yourself seem bigger, more dangerous, less appealing. Sometimes, against all odds, it works. The predator, perhaps finding an easier target, turns away, leaving you trembling, covered in mud or sweat, but alive. Those moments of escape are etched into your memory, reinforcing the brutal lesson that vigilance and speed are your only true allies. You're not just surviving, you're evolving, one terrifying encounter at a time. The world demands constant alertness, and you deliver, because the alternative is simply unthinkable. Even if you manage to outwit a hungry beast or find a temporary respite from the scorching sun, an unseen army is constantly besieging your vulnerable body, microorganisms. You have no concept of germs, bacteria, or viruses. You only know that sometimes, without warning, you become terribly, debilitatingly sick. Imagine a sudden, agonizing fever that makes your muscles ache and your head pound, leaving you too weak to even lift yourself from the damp earth. Your stomach churns, cramps, and eventually rebels, forcing you to empty its contents in violent spasms. This isn't just uncomfortable, it's terrifying, because you don't understand why it's happening or if it will ever stop. You've drunk from that clear-looking stream, remember? The one that didn't taste too bad? Well, it might have been teeming with microscopic parasites, now waging war in your intestines. You picked up that piece of scavenged meat, left by a larger predator, perhaps a day too long in the sun. It looked okay, smelled vaguely edible, but it was crawling with bacteria that are now releasing toxins into your bloodstream. Your immune system, while fundamental, is facing a barrage of pathogens it has never encountered before, and often, it simply can't cope. One mainstream historical fact is that infectious diseases were a leading cause of death for early humans, with life expectancies often incredibly low, sometimes not even reaching 30 years. For you, the first human, every sniffle, every cough, every upset stomach is a potential death sentence. There's no doctor to diagnose, no medicine to alleviate symptoms, not even a kind hand to wipe your brow. You lie shivering, sweating, and miserable, relying solely on your body's raw, unaided ability to fight off the invaders. And often, it loses. A quirky tidbit. Some theories suggest that the constant exposure to a wide variety of pathogens actually helped to train the early human immune system, making it incredibly robust over generations. But for you, the initial guinea pig, it's a brutal trial by fire. Every illness is a lesson in pain and incapacitation. You might even stumble upon a plant that, when chewed, seems to lessen the pain of a headache or calm a churning stomach. This isn't scientific medicine. It's pure, desperate experimentation, a lucky guess in a field of poisonous possibilities. Historians still argue whether early human populations developed any sophisticated understanding of hygiene beyond avoiding obviously putrid food or water, or if practices like burying the dead were more ritualistic than health-conscious. For you, hygiene simply isn't a concept. You relieve yourself where you stand, eat with unwashed hands, and sleep in the same dirt you scavenge from. The insects that constantly buzz around you aren't just annoying. They are vectors, carrying diseases you can't see. A mosquito bite isn't just an itch. It could be the prelude to a debilitating fever that leaves you too weak to hunt or flee. A fly landing on your food isn't just gross. It's potentially depositing thousands of invisible agents of sickness. You are truly alone against a microscopic world, completely oblivious to its existence, yet constantly battling its effects. Imagine waking up one morning and finding one of your limbs swollen, red, and hot to the touch, perhaps from a minor cut that became infected. The pain is intense, throbbing with every beat of your heart. You don't know why it's happening or what to do. You might instinctively try to rub it, or instinctively keep it still, hoping the pain will magically dissipate. Sometimes, miraculously, it does. Other times, the infection spreads, the limb becomes gangrenous, and eventually, the unseen killers inside you win. Your existence is a testament to the raw resilience of the human body, but also a stark reminder of its profound fragility in a world without even the most basic understanding of disease. Every breath you take, every bite you eat, every drop you drink, is a roll of the invisible dice. Even if you manage to evade the saber-toothed cat, find relatively clean water, and shake off that debilitating fever, your body is a constant canvas for injury and pain. Imagine stumbling over a hidden root, twisting your ankle with a sickening crunch. The pain is immediate, searing, and unlike anything you've ever felt. You collapse, whimpering, unable to put any weight on it. There's no hospital, no urgent care clinic, not even a sympathetic voice offering comfort. You are utterly alone with your agony. Your only recourse is to simply endure it. You might instinctively try to keep the limb still, perhaps even wrapping it loosely with large leaves or strips of bark, more out of desperation than any understanding of splinting. But every movement sends fresh waves of agony through you. Hunting becomes impossible. Fleeing from predators is out of the question. You are now a sitting duck, vulnerable, helpless, and completely dependent on your body's slow, agonizing, and often imperfect healing process. Many injuries that we consider minor today, a deep cut, a broken finger, a severe bruise, would have been life-threatening catastrophes for you. One mainstream historical fact is that evidence from early hominid remains often shows signs of severe injuries, including healed fractures, suggesting that individuals survived them but likely endured prolonged periods of incapacitation. For you, the first human, every misstep is a potential tragedy. A splinter under your fingernail could fester into a crippling infection. A scraped knee from a fall could become a weeping wound, attracting flies and disease. You learn, through the bitter lessons of constant pain, to move with extreme caution, to assess every footfall, to guard against every sharp rock and thorny bush. A quirky tidbit: some paleoanthropologists theorize that early humans might have instinctively sought out certain plants with analgesic properties, chewing on leaves or roots to dull pain, a rudimentary form of self-medication. But you, the first human, are just guessing. Perhaps you chew on a bitter leaf out of boredom or frustration, and surprisingly, the throbbing in your head lessens slightly. It's not science, it's desperate, accidental discovery. Historians still argue whether pain tolerance in early humans was intrinsically higher due to constant exposure, or if their response to pain was simply less articulated and understood than ours. For you, pain isn't just a sensation, it's a constant companion, a warning, and often an executioner. Imagine the persistent ache of a tooth cavity or the searing agony of an abscessed tooth. There's no dentist, no pain reliever stronger than a lucky herbal find. You simply live with the constant, grinding discomfort, perhaps trying to avoid chewing on that side of your mouth, or pressing a cold leaf against your jaw. Sleep offers little escape, as the pain keeps you restless and anxious. Beyond acute injuries, there's the chronic pain of a life lived outdoors, without comfort or rest. Your muscles constantly ache from endless trekking and scavenging. Your joints throb from sleeping on hard ground. Your hands are perpetually scraped, cut, and calloused from foraging and climbing. This isn't the kind of pain that motivates you to go to the gym. It's the kind that erodes your spirit, wearing you down with its relentless presence. Every day is a testament to your body's incredible capacity to endure misery, but also a stark reminder of its profound vulnerability without any external aid. You are your own doctor, your own nurse, your own pharmacist, and often your own undertaker, as many of these battles against pain end in defeat. Beyond the gnawing hunger, the constant thirst, the brutal elements, and the ever-present threat of injury and predators, there's an even deeper, more insidious struggle: profound social isolation. You are the first human. There are no other humans. There's no one to share a moment of triumph with after finding a ripe fruit tree, no one to commiserate with after a close call with a predator. Imagine the crushing weight of utter solitude, day after day, week after week. Your vocal cords work, you can make sounds, but there's no one to talk to, no one to respond, no one to share a laugh with, even if you knew what laughing was. You wander through vast, empty landscapes, your only companions the indifferent trees, the wary animals, and the silent sky. There's no comfort in numbers, no collective wisdom to draw upon. Every problem, every challenge, every fear, you face entirely alone. The concept of a tribe, of community, of shared burdens, is utterly alien to you. You are a solitary consciousness in a boundless, unfeeling world. This isn't just loneliness, it's a fundamental lack of mirroring, of connection, that would drive even the most resilient modern mind to despair. One mainstream historical fact is that early human survival was profoundly linked to group living, with safety in numbers, shared resources, and collective knowledge being critical advantages. For you, the first human, every single task, from finding food to building the most rudimentary shelter, must be accomplished solely through your own efforts. There's no one to guard your back while you sleep, no one to help you carry a heavy log, no one to point out a safe path or a dangerous animal. You are the ultimate individualist, not by choice, but by terrifying necessity. A quirky tidbit from behavioral science suggests that humans have an innate need for social interaction, with prolonged isolation leading to severe psychological distress, including hallucinations and paranoia. For you, the lines between reality and a mind strained by solitude might begin to blur. Was that a shadow that moved, or did your exhausted mind conjure it? You might find yourself vocalizing, making sounds, listening intently for a response that never comes. Historians still argue whether the development of complex social structures preceded or followed significant cognitive leaps in early hominids. For you, there is no social structure, just the echoing silence of your own existence. The silence, at first, might be just the absence of sound, but eventually, it becomes a presence, a heavy cloak that wraps around you. You develop an acute awareness of your own breathing, the thumping of your own heart, the only constant rhythms in your solitary world. There's no one to reassure you when you hear a strange sound in the dark, no one to share the burden of fear. The weight of responsibility for your own survival is entirely yours, with no one to lean on, no one to help. Even the most basic emotional expressions go unreturned. You might feel a flicker of joy when you find a safe water source, but there's no one to witness it, no one to share in the small triumph. You experience moments of intense terror, but there's no one to comfort you. This lack of shared experience means that every emotion, every sensation, every lesson is internalized, locked within your own mind. You carry the full burden of your existence, unfiltered and unalleviated by companionship. It's an exhausting, relentless pressure, a constant reminder that for all your struggles, you are fundamentally, tragically, alone. The profound social isolation you experience isn't just about the absence of companionship. It cripples your ability to share the most fundamental human tool, language. Imagine trying to explain your terror after a near miss with a predator, or the immense relief of finding a source of clean water, but all you have are grunts, gestures, and the most rudimentary sounds. There's no vocabulary, no syntax, no shared understanding of symbols or concepts. You feel complex emotions, you observe complex events, but you have no means of communicating them beyond immediate, primal reactions. You might point frantically at the spot where a large, hairy creature disappeared, making a deep, rumbling sound in your throat. You might mime eating with exaggerated chewing motions, hoping to convey hunger. But these are fleeting, imprecise signals. There's no way to convey the concept of yesterday, or tomorrow, or that big cat that almost got me last week. Every thought, every observation, every warning is trapped within your own mind, unshareable, unprocessable by another. This isn't just inconvenient, it's a terrifying barrier to knowledge transfer and collective survival. One mainstream historical fact is that the development of complex language is considered a crucial evolutionary leap for early humans, enabling cooperation, the sharing of knowledge, and the transmission of culture across generations. For you, the first human, this incredible tool doesn't exist yet. You are living in a pre-verbal world, where the very act of abstract thought is hampered by the lack of words to define it. You experience a danger, but you don't have the word danger. You feel hunger, but there's no hunger to articulate. A quirky tidbit from linguistics suggests that the earliest forms of human communication might have been a blend of gestures, facial expressions, and a limited set of vocalizations, similar to how chimpanzees communicate today. For you, this is your everyday reality. You might develop a few distinct sounds for immediate threats, a sharp cry for a snake, a low growl for a large carnivore. But these are instinctual reactions, not deliberate communication. There's no discussion of strategy, no recounting of past events, no planning for the future beyond immediate instinct. Historians still argue whether the physical evolution of the vocal tract or the cognitive development of the brain for symbolic thought was the primary driver for the emergence of complex language. For you, the physical capacity might be there, but the social impetus and the shared cultural context simply aren't. Imagine the frustration. You see a particular plant that makes you sick, but you can't articulate to another, if there were another, that those red berries are bad. You could only react with aversion if you encountered them again. There's no way to teach, no way to warn, no way to learn from someone else's mistake without directly observing it. Every lesson must be learned firsthand, through painful, often life-threatening, experience. The absence of language also means the absence of storytelling, of shared history, of communal bonding through narrative. You cannot describe your dreams, or the bizarre patterns you see in the clouds. Your internal world, no matter how rich, remains completely private. This profound silence around complex thought isn't just lonely. It limits your very capacity for abstract reasoning and problem solving. Each problem you face is a fresh puzzle, approached without the benefit of accumulated wisdom or the ability to articulate possible solutions. You are a genius in isolation, but your brilliance is constrained by the very medium of your thought. The world, for you, is a vast, unindexed library of danger and scarce resources. Without language, without shared knowledge, every single lesson is learned the absolute hardest way possible, through direct, often agonizing, experience. Imagine you're drawn to a patch of vibrant, juicy-looking berries. They sparkle in the sun, seemingly a gift from the indifferent landscape. You pop a handful into your mouth, savoring the initial burst of sweetness. Then, the burning starts. Your throat constricts, your stomach seizes, and you're plunged into hours of violent vomiting and crippling pain. You have just learned, through profound suffering, that those specific berries are poisonous. There's no one to warn you beforehand, no ancestral memory whispering, "Don't touch that." This brutal trial and error cycle applies to everything. You try to scale a smooth rock face, confident in your nascent strength, only to slip and tumble, bruising your limbs and knocking the wind out of you. You learn about the concept of friction, or lack thereof, through the sharp jolt of impact. You try to approach a beautiful, strangely patterned snake, curious about its slow movements, only for it to coil and strike with lightning speed. its fangs injecting venom into your flesh. You learn about the swift, silent danger of some creatures through the agonizing spread of poison and the desperate fight for your life. Every mistake carries a cost, and that cost is often pain, injury, or death. One mainstream historical fact is that early human survival was highly dependent on practical knowledge accumulated over generations, covering everything from edible plants to animal behavior and tool-making techniques. For you, the first human, this accumulated knowledge simply doesn't exist. You are starting from zero, a blank slate in a world where ignorance is not bliss, but fatal. Every single piece of survival information, what to eat, what to avoid, how to escape danger, where to find water, must be personally discovered and painfully memorized. A quirky tidbit: some cognitive archaeologists suggest that the development of episodic memory, the ability to recall specific events and their context, was crucial for early humans to learn from their mistakes and build a mental library of experiences. For you, this internal record is your only textbook. You vividly remember the taste of that bad berry, the sensation of the slippery rock, the sharp pain of the snake bite. These aren't just memories. They are survival guides written in pain. Historians still argue whether early human intelligence was primarily driven by the need to solve complex environmental problems or by the increasing demands of social interaction. For you, it's definitively the former. Your intellect is constantly engaged in a desperate, real-time problem-solving exercise where the wrong answer means extinction. You might stumble upon a pile of stones, naturally sharp-edged, and try to use one to crack open a hard-shelled fruit. It works. A tiny spark of understanding, a flash of insight, as you realize that some objects can be used as extensions of your own body, making tasks easier. This isn't innovation born from leisure. It's born from desperation and a fortunate coincidence. You don't have a workshop, just the raw materials of the world and the relentless pressure to survive. Every day is a grueling exam with immediate and severe consequences for failure. You're constantly experimenting, observing, and reacting. You learn to recognize patterns, the types of trees that attract certain edible insects, the distinctive call of a bird that signals the presence of a predator, the subtle shift in the wind that heralds a coming storm. These are your scientific discoveries, your technological advancements, hard-won through countless hours of dangerous observation and personal suffering. Your very survival hinges on your ability to learn, quickly and unforgivingly, from a world that offers no second chances. Just when you thought your solitary existence couldn't get any more challenging, a new, primal drive takes hold. A powerful urge that transcends hunger, thirst, or fear, the imperative to reproduce. Imagine the bewildering experience of realizing there's another human, somehow, somewhere, in this vast, empty world. For you, the first human, this isn't a social choice. It's a biological command, the raw, undeniable urge to ensure the continuation of your nascent species. And with that comes the terrifying reality of parenthood in a world designed to kill. You've somehow found a mate, someone as lost and alone as you, and together, through instinctual urges, you create new life. Then, the real terror begins. Imagine the sheer helplessness as you watch a tiny, fragile creature emerge into this brutal world. A baby. It's completely dependent, utterly vulnerable, a screaming bundle that demands constant attention, yet offers no immediate help in return. There's no hospital for a safe delivery, no prenatal care, no clean swaddling clothes. The birth itself is agonizing, dangerous, and often fatal for both mother and child. If the mother survives, she is immediately weakened, and now burdened with the incessant cries and needs of an infant. One mainstream historical fact is that infant mortality rates for early humans were extraordinarily high, with many children not surviving past early childhood due to disease, starvation, and predation. For you, this isn't a statistic, it's a lived heartbreak. You experience the crushing despair of watching your offspring sicken and fade, helpless to intervene. You don't understand why they're crying, why they're feverish, or why they suddenly stop breathing. There's no knowledge of basic hygiene, no concept of nutrition tailored for a baby. You simply offer what you have, your milk, your warmth, your bewildered protection, and pray to an indifferent sky that it will be enough. A quirky tidbit from evolutionary biology suggests that the prolonged period of human-infant dependency, compared to other primates, necessitated cooperative childcare and strengthened early social bonds. But for you, the first parents, there's no cooperative childcare. There's only you and your mate, grappling with this immense responsibility. While one forges, the other must protect the child, constantly vigilant against predators that see an easy meal. There's no baby monitor, no crib. The child sleeps pressed against your body, a tiny warmth in the cold night, a constant source of anxiety. Historians still argue whether the development of pair bonding and paternal care in early hominids was primarily driven by the demands of raising helpless offspring, or by other social or environmental pressures. For you, the shared burden of keeping this fragile life alive is a new, profound, and often overwhelming challenge. Every moment of the child's existence is fraught with peril. A sudden cough, a rash, a fall from a branch. Each minor incident holds the potential for catastrophic consequences. You spend countless hours carrying the child, protecting it from thorns, insects, and the biting sun. You forage for food not just for yourself, but for this tiny mouth that cannot fend for itself. Your movements are restricted, your ability to hunt or flee severely compromised by the presence of a helpless infant. The emotional toll is immense. You experience a fierce, protective love you never knew existed, coupled with a crushing fear of loss. Each day your child survives is a tiny victory, a testament to unimaginable resilience. But for every one that survives, many more, in those early, brutal generations, do not. The silent grief of these losses, born alone or with a single bewildered partner, would be profound, shaping your very understanding of life and death. The continuation of humanity rests entirely on your shoulders, and on the agonizing, often heartbreaking, struggle to raise these first, fragile generations. You've somehow managed to keep yourself alive, found a mate, and even brought a child into this unforgiving world, but now you face another immense hurdle: the sheer absence of tools. Imagine needing to cut a tough animal hide for warmth, or needing to break open a hard nut for sustenance, and all you have are your bare hands. Your fingernails are torn, your palms are raw, and your fingers ache with the effort of tasks that modern humans accomplish with a flick of the wrist. You pick up a jagged rock, feeling its rough edges. It's heavy, awkward, but maybe it can do something. You try to hack at a tough vine, but the rock just glances off or shatters uselessly. You learn, through countless failures, that not all rocks are created equal. Some chip in ways that create a sharp edge, others simply crumble. This isn't theoretical knowledge from a textbook. It's the excruciating process of discovering the fundamental properties of materials through brute force and endless repetition. One mainstream historical fact is that the Oldowan tool industry, characterized by simple choppers and flakes, represents humanity's earliest undisputed technological innovation, dating back around 2.6 million years ago. For you, the first human, this industry is a personal, painstaking struggle. You're not just manufacturing a tool, you're inventing the concept of a tool. You might, purely by accident, strike one stone against another in just the right way, causing a sharp flake to detach. A small, sharp shard of rock falls to the ground, and for the first time, you hold something that can actually cut. This isn't a eureka moment with celebratory music. It's a silent, almost reverent realization of newfound power, a small advantage in a world designed to crush you. A quirky tidbit from experimental archaeology is the effort involved in replicating early stone tools, demonstrating the immense skill and understanding of lithic properties that early humans, and by extension, you, would have intuitively developed. You pick up a suitable cobble, holding it just so. You select a hammerstone and bring it down with a precise, forceful blow, attempting to chip off a usable flake. Most attempts result in shattered rock or bruised fingers, but every now and then, you achieve a clean break, producing a sharp edge. Historians still argue whether the development of toolmaking was primarily a result of increasing brain size and cognitive ability, or if the demands of tool use actually drove brain development through a feedback loop. For you, it's simply survival. You need to process food, defend yourself, and make life just infinitesimally less impossible. Imagine the frustration of trying to skin an animal you've managed to scavenge, using only your blunt teeth and inadequate fingernails. It's a messy, agonizing process, often leaving you with cuts and scrapes, and much of the valuable hide wasted. But then, armed with that first sharp flake, the task becomes marginally easier. You discover that with a sharp edge, you can sever muscle, scrape meat from bone, even cut tough plant fibers. The efficiency, though still primitive, is revolutionary for your existence. This process of innovation is slow, agonizing, and often setbacks are more common than successes. You might spend days trying to fashion a simple digging stick, only to have it snap on the first tough root. You learn about the grain of wood, the strength of different branches, the leverage needed. Every broken tool, every failed attempt, is a harsh lesson in physics and material science. You are the ultimate DIY expert, born of necessity, in a workshop that spans the entire unforgiving planet, and every small, hard-won innovation is a monumental leap for humanity. Despite your monumental efforts to learn, adapt, and innovate, there's one omnipresent force you cannot evade: death. Imagine the constant, chilling awareness that life, for you and any precious offspring you manage to bring into the world, is brutally short and incredibly fragile. There's no expectation of old age, no gentle decline. Instead, death is a sharp, sudden punctuation mark at the end of a brief, arduous sentence. It can come from a predator's swift strike, the agonizing grip of disease, a catastrophic fall, or simply the slow, relentless erosion of your body by hunger and exposure. You witness death constantly. The small bird snatched from the air by a hawk, the herd animal brought down by a pack of wolves, your own mate, perhaps, succumbing to a fever or a grievous injury that your nascent medical knowledge couldn't even begin to address. Each death, whether of animal or nascent human, is a stark reminder of your own precarious existence. There's no elaborate funeral ritual, no understanding of an afterlife, just the raw, visceral reality of a body that no longer moves, no longer breathes. One mainstream historical fact is that archaeological evidence suggests very low life expectancies for early humans, often with many not living past their 20s or 30s. For you, the first human, this means every day is a bonus, every night survived a small miracle. You are living on the knife edge of existence, where a single mistake, a moment of weakness, or an unlucky encounter means the immediate end of your story. You don't have time to lament the brevity of life. You're too busy just trying to survive the next hour. A quirky tidbit: some anthropologists speculate that the early understanding of death, particularly the distinction between a living body and a lifeless one, might have been a foundational step towards abstract thought and eventually spiritual beliefs. But for you, it's just raw observation. A body is there, then it isn't. The warmth is gone, the eyes are dull. It's a terrifying finality that underscores the desperate preciousness of every moment of breath. Historians still argue whether the earliest intentional burials represent a nascent religious belief in an afterlife, or simply a practical way to deal with decaying bodies and prevent attracting scavengers to the camp. For you, the pragmatic necessity of dealing with a deceased loved one might outweigh any abstract thought. Perhaps you drag the body to a concealed spot, or cover it with rocks, driven by a primal urge to protect it from scavengers, or simply to make it less visible. The constant presence of death means that every decision carries immense weight. Do you risk approaching that dangerous water source, knowing it might be contaminated, but thirst will kill you faster? Do you pursue that injured animal, knowing a stronger predator might be lurking, but hunger is unbearable? Your choices are always between two potential forms of demise, a grim dance with mortality. There's no safety net, no last-minute rescue. You might experience injuries that never fully heal, leaving you with a permanent limp or a chronic ache. These aren't just inconveniences. They are constant reminders of past close calls and vulnerabilities that could lead to your ultimate downfall. Every scar is a story of survival, but also a mark of a body slowly accumulating damage. You are living a life where the specter of death is not a distant, abstract concept, but a tangible, ever-present threat lurking just beyond the next tree, the next sunrise, the next desperate breath. And yet, somehow, you keep going. In this brutal tapestry of survival, where every moment is a fight against hunger, thirst, predators, illness, and injury, there's one profound casualty: the luxury of contemplation. Imagine your mind, constantly bombarded by immediate sensory input and primal survival instincts, with absolutely no space for abstract thought, no quiet moments of reflection. You don't sit and ponder the meaning of life, or the vastness of the cosmos, or even the peculiar beauty of a sunset. Your existence is a relentless, unbroken cycle of doing. Every dawn brings the urgent need to find food and water. Every shadow hints at danger, demanding hypervigilance. Every ache, every pain, every struggle consumes your focus entirely. There's no time to muse on the patterns of the stars, no leisure to observe the intricate dance of insects for intellectual curiosity. Your mind is a tool for immediate problem solving. Is that edible? Is that safe? Can I outrun that? It's a reactive existence, driven by the ceaseless demands of the present moment. One mainstream historical fact is that the development of cognitive abilities for abstract thought, planning, and symbolic reasoning are hallmarks of modern human intelligence, emerging gradually over millions of years. For you, the first human, these abilities are nascent, overwhelmed by the sheer, unadulterated reality of simply staying alive. Your brain is a supercomputer running only essential, life-sustaining programs. There's no bandwidth for philosophy, no capacity for art beyond the accidental beauty of a tool you've fashioned out of necessity. A quirky tidbit: some cognitive scientists propose that the shift from an entirely reactive brain to one capable of proactive planning was a crucial evolutionary step, linked to changes in diet and social complexity. But for you, the constant threat of starvation means planning beyond the next meal is a fantasy. Your future is measured in hours, not days or weeks. You might instinctually remember where a particular fruit tree was, but you don't formulate complex strategies for future harvesting. You live entirely in the now, driven by the immediate, pressing needs of your body. Historians still argue whether early human cave art was primarily for ritualistic purposes, a form of communication, or simply an expression of leisure and aesthetic appreciation. For you, art is an unimaginable concept. Your hands are for digging, climbing, and defending, not for etching images onto rock walls. Imagine watching a storm roll in. You don't think about the atmospheric pressure, or the water cycle, or the scientific reasons for lightning. You think, shelter. Now, you don't admire the beauty of the swirling clouds. You recognize the imminent threat of chilling rain and roaring winds. Your perception of the world is purely utilitarian. Every object, every phenomenon, is assessed solely for its potential to harm or help your immediate survival. The concept of a past is a series of hard-won lessons, a collection of dangerous encounters and successful food finds. The concept of a future is merely the next sunrise and the renewed, terrifying certainty of hunger and danger. There's no nostalgia for simpler times, because there have been no simpler times. There's no hopeful vision of a better tomorrow, because your experience teaches you only the relentless, unchanging struggle. Your mind, though powerful, is a perpetual motion machine of survival, with no off switch and no time for the quiet, reflective journey that defines so much of modern human consciousness. You are living, moment to moment, on the raw edge of existence, without the luxury of looking back or forward. After all the relentless struggle, the unending hunger, the constant fear, and the profound isolation, what remains of your existence? Your individual story, the sheer, unimaginable hardship of being the very first human, will largely vanish. There are no written records, no oral histories to pass down, no monuments to your singular struggle. You are the ultimate pioneer, but your legacy is not a celebrated narrative. It's a faded footprint, absorbed back into the indifferent earth. Imagine your body, eventually succumbing to the cumulative toll of endless injury, disease, and starvation. You fall, perhaps, beneath the shade of a tree, your breath shallow, your heart slowing. There's no one to mourn, no one to remember your name, because names, like stories, require shared language and community. Your raw, immediate experiences, the terror of a predator, the sweetness of a rare, safe berry, the bone-deep chill of a storm, These are etched only into your own consciousness, and when that consciousness flickers out, they are gone. One mainstream historical fact is that much of our understanding of early human life comes from archaeological remains, fossils, tools, and environmental evidence, rather than direct accounts of individual lives. For you, this means your entire life is, by necessity, a silent contribution to the eventual rise of humanity. You leave behind no grand testament, no philosophical treatise. You leave behind your genetic material, passed on to the few offspring who, against astronomical odds, managed to survive. Your contribution is biological, a tiny, crucial link in the chain of evolution. A quirky tidbit. Some theories suggest that the earliest forms of symbolic thought, perhaps expressed through simple markings or arrangements of objects, might have been incredibly rare and isolated occurrences, without widespread cultural adoption. But for you, the idea of creating anything beyond what's immediately necessary for survival is a foreign concept. There's no time for anything beyond the urgent present. Your legacy is the slight adaptation of a muscle group, a tiny refinement in a bone structure, a subtle shift in a survival instinct passed down through your progeny. Historians still argue whether the concept of individual identity, as we understand it, was even present in the earliest humans, or if their existence was entirely subsumed by the demands of group survival, which you don't even have yet. For you, identity is merely the raw consciousness experiencing this relentless struggle. Your innovations, the first accidental sharp flake, the intuitive understanding that certain plants relieve pain, the slow realization that water from a fast-moving stream is safer, these are not celebrated discoveries. They are simply facts of survival, internalized and perhaps, if your offspring are lucky and observant enough, briefly carried forward through imitation, before being forgotten or rediscovered by another generation. There's no patent office, no publishing house for your hard-won knowledge. The sun sets, as it always does, casting long, familiar shadows across the landscape. The sounds of the night, once terrifying, are now just the backdrop to your fading awareness. You've lived a life of unimaginable hardship, a constant, brutal negotiation with a world that offered no quarter. And yet, through your sheer, stubborn will to exist, through your raw capacity to adapt and learn, you laid the groundwork. You were the first. You endured so that countless generations could follow, eventually building civilizations, writing histories, and pondering the very questions that your desperate existence never allowed you to ask. Your end is not tragic, but foundational. You disappear into the vastness of time, a silent, anonymous sacrifice that made everything else possible. Now, as the echoes of that ancient, arduous journey begin to fade, allow your breath to deepen, to slow. Feel the gentle weight of your blankets, the comforting firmness of your bed. The struggles of the first human are far, far away, tucked into the distant reaches of time. You are safe, warm, and utterly secure. Let the quiet hum of the night, or the soft whir of a fan, gently carry away any lingering thoughts of ancient fears. Your mind is free to drift, unburdened by the primal fight for existence. Let the soft darkness envelop you, a blanket of peace. There are no saber-toothed cats lurking, no poisonous berries to fear, no biting winds to brave. Just the quiet calm of your own space, allowing sleep to claim you, easily, completely. End of script. Sweet dreams.